Part 5. I stayed in bed for the next 3 days. I had to call in sick to work, which was fine because I very rarely miss my shifts, but I wouldn't have cared either way. I was even deeper within the dullness now, like there was several inches of something between myself and the world. I could barely breathe through it. When I would get up for food or to use the restroom, I felt more like a marionettist pulling the corresponding string for each body part than like myself. I wondered why I was the one paying for all of the suffering that I had discovered. On the 4th day, I willed myself out of bed. I got dressed, put my gear on, and headed out the door. I had somewhere to be. The 20-minute drive to Weatherford TX definitely improved my mood a bit. The stark scenery, flat land and trees, is calming sometimes. The Mineral Wells Public Library was closed indefinitely for repairs. Some issue with the contractors who were supposed to fix the roof, so the annual Mineral Wells Day presentation had been moved to Weatherford's Public Library. Our precinct likes its officers to participate in community events as much as possible, and this year it was my turn to attend. The presentation concentrated on the rich history of Mineral Wells and the brave leaders that built it from a one-well town to a booming resort community. The irony did not escape me. J.A. Lynch was the ultimate hero of the day, but I knew otherwise. I sat in the back and listened off and on, but was mostly lost in my own thoughts. When it concluded, I stepped outside to speak briefly to one of the presenters to thank them for their support of our community outreach program. But a familiar face was already speaking to her. It was Mary Scott. I should have known I would see her here. We exchanged glances when she was done, and a moment later she walked over to me and spoke. "You look like hell, dear," she said matter-of-factly. All the honesty of Southern women. She could obviously tell something was wrong. "Appreciate that," I joked. A little levity never hurt anyone. "Mary, I found the files in the basement at the hospital. Dr. Norwood and his nurse were performing experiments on young children and sending the parents over to Milling Sanitarium to get rid of the witnesses." Mary looked at me intently. "I know," she said. A dagger shoved into my gut wouldn't have done any more damage than her words had. So I had risked my life and sanity in that basement for, what, some sick game she was playing. She looked around to see if anyone was listening, then motioned for me to follow her around the corner of the building. I had a mind to walk off, but followed against my better judgment. Only half of me hoped you'd find them. The other half, well, I'm sorry I didn't tell you, I had my reasons. There are, she paused, trying to find the right word, consequences for talking about the events of Mineral Wells past, from the living and the dead. Remember how I said I no longer drank the mineral water? Well, I did for many years of my life, which makes me vulnerable. She stopped and pulled up the sleeve on the shirt she was wearing. I saw 2 long lengthwise cuts that went from her wrist almost to her elbow, almost healed. They were just deep enough to bleed and scar, but not deep enough to hit any major veins. I did them myself, 2 days after our conversation, but I don't remember doing it. A warning, I suppose, from whom, I said, feeling the guilt rising inside me. I had gone from being angry at her to feeling sorry for her that quickly. My emotions were very unstable as of late. She hesitated briefly, like Stan had, then continued. "Did those files mention Dr. Norwood's nurse, Mariana?" I answered. "She was my grandmother." The realization hit me like a bombshell. No wonder she didn't want to tell me. It also explained how she knew about the files and everything else. She went on. "She came to Mineral Wells in 1910 seeking treatment for her mental disorder. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but my mother said she heard voices. Mariana was only 24 then. I guess Dr. Norwood thought he could use her. She had my mother at least 6 years later." She paused again. "I'm sorry, Mary. You don't have to tell me all this. It's too dangerous." My voice cracked. "Yes, I do. It's time the truth came out. Growing up, you always think your parents are perfect. After you get a little older, you start to notice things about them. My mother was missing several fingers on her right and left hands. They had operated on her when she was a child. I found out later. She had other scars too." She was starting to cry. "By her own mother?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes, which is how I know the same could happen to me. I saw my grandmother in my dreams the night I got these scars. I heard the bell, which meant it was time for one of the children to go with Mariana. It was my turn." She was now sobbing. I put my arms around her. The past is never dead, I thought. She wiped her eyes. Why my mother named me after her I'll never understand, but perhaps she didn't either. She pulled away, then turned back around. "Oh, there's one last thing. I tried to tell you this the last time we spoke. You need to go see Madame Teresa. She's here in Weatherford and does psychic readings. Pay no mind to the surface of what you see. That's only for the tourists. Teresa is an old soul. She should be able to help you." I almost balked, but thought better of it. If I had seen and heard the dead with my own eyes and ears, it wasn't a huge leap to believe that someone else could speak to them. "Thank you. I'll do it," I agreed. "I hope she can help you the rest of the way. I have given you all I can." She looked like she meant it. It wasn't hard to find Miss Teresa. She was, after all, the only local business with a sign that bore the image of two hands holding a crystal ball, even if she was located several miles from the city limits. I still had my doubts, but I had no other option at this point. The small shop had seen better days. The carpet was purple and faded, and beads and other baubles hung from the low ceiling haphazardly. The smell of eucalyptus and cinnamon filled the air, covering the smell of the cats that tramped around the room, for the most part at least. The sign inside said by appointment only, but I hoped she already knew I was coming. I took a seat as at the large, ornately carved wooden table in the center of the room. That's when a woman appeared from behind the curtain in front of me. She wore a long dress, rough-spun and voluminous, with a hood on the back. She was dark-haired and her wrinkled, sagging skin was the same. I could not see her eyes. She wore a mask over them, but instead of eye holes, the mask was solid, with eyes finely painted in their correct places. It was supremely unnerving, like looking at a life-size doll that had come to life. "Mary sent me," was all I could muster. "I see," she replied. "Come with me," and with that, she disappeared behind the curtain again. I slowly got up and followed her back. The room behind the curtain was much smaller than the main room, with only a small, simple wooden table in the middle. In the four corners of the room were small painted statues depicting animals, totems I believe they are called. A goose, a mountain lion, a hummingbird, and a gopher. I recognized the eyes. They were the same that had been painted on Teresa's mask. She was already seated at the table, so I sat down across from her. I noticed her hands were as wrinkled and weathered as I had ever seen, but gentle, somehow. I tried to focus on them. Looking at her face scared me. Frankly, I sensed that she could feel my discomfort. We didn't have to speak about Mary or my purpose here. It was clear she understood. "Can you speak to the dead?" I managed to squeak out. I have spoken to them. "Dead, you say? There is no death. There is only a change of worlds. That is what my people believe." Her voice rolled slowly and rhythmically, like a train rolling over its tracks. "Why are they in mineral wells? And why are they tormenting the living? When man leaves this world, he passes into the spirit realm. Spirits are always around us, but the dead are not powerless. They can be incited to violence, just as man can. Mineral wells and the water it is named after are cursed, but the exact source of this curse is hidden to me. I do have my guesses, though. In Pueblo mythology, there is a spirit known as Pashuni. I believe it is similar to the spirit depicted in the Christian Bible who appears as a snake in the Garden of Eden. Pashuni is known as an interloper. His purpose is to create strife. It was he who tempted the first humans and disrupted their harmony with nature. I believe whomever first coaxed the mineral-rich water from the depths of the earth may have been visited by Pashuni. A deal may have been struck. The water would bring great wealth, but there would be a price. When the first men used the water to deceive those who honestly sought it, the price was exacted. The water was cursed, and all those who died in mineral wells while seeking the water would remain to exact their own vengeance against the ancestors of those who brought about their deaths. If it wasn't Pashuni, it may have been some other earth demon. In the end, it is of no consequence. It was ultimately man's lust for power and insatiable greed that cursed mineral wells. I replayed all of the strange events I had encountered during my time in mineral wells in my mind. Virginia Brown, James' great-grandmother, Mariana, the man at the VA, and even the children. All had come to mineral wells seeking treatment for something. There were others that I was unsure of, like the spirits involved in the Fort Walters suicide, Brad Deloney's murder of his wife, and the lawnmower accident. But I had a hunch those spirits had done the same. If I wasn't truly numb before, I was now. My eyes seemed to roll in my head. I'm not sure if I passed out, but all of a sudden Teresa's hands were on mine. "There is a dark cloud over you. You must be careful," she said cryptically. I looked around the room, trying to concentrate on something, and my eyes locked on the gopher totem. Although she couldn't see me, she knew. The totems, yes, they are for protection. My people believe that spirit animals can guard man from evil. They guard this room. One for water, one for mountain, one for air, and one for earth. The gopher guards the ground. Hopefully he will guard you too. But, your eyes. I started, not thinking clearly. I can see better without them. I slowly regained my composure and stood up shakily. Teresa put her arms around me and guided me into the main room. As I was about to leave, she spoke again. "There is something else. I hesitate to say this to you in your condition, but I must. You have a friend in grave danger." I was already out the door, stumbling to my squad car. I arrived at Mary's house about 15 minutes later. It was evening and the sun was creeping behind the horizon, painting the sky with multicolored hues of lavender and red. I didn't notice any of her dogs running about as I pulled up with my lights on and sirens blasting, neglecting to turn them off as I exited the vehicle. I drew my weapon instinctively, even though it had little chance of protecting me or Mary from an evil spirit. I slowly crept toward the door and found it unlocked. I was barely seeing clearly at this point, but found my way inside. My boots squished on the floor of the living room. I looked down to find the carpet soaked with so much blood that it had created a standing puddle, one that I was forced to walk through rather than around. This went against every bit of my training, but I was not thinking clearly at the time. The dullness had almost overcome me. It was then I noticed there were body parts floating in the sea of red, a tongue, a foot, an eye. I retched once, then again. In a daze, I followed the trail of blood through the living room and into the kitchen. It was worse there. The entire floor was red, and there were more body parts. Pieces of flesh and bone may be more accurate. It was hard to make out anything among the gore. The smell of death permeated the air. Or was that only my fear? Through my tears I found my way through the kitchen and around the small island in the center. It was there I found Mary, or what was left of her, slumped against the far cabinets. Her face wasn't hers anymore. It seemed to me like some professionally done movie prop. Her nose had been sliced cleanly off, and there were 2 bloody holes where he eyes had been. I wished I had Teresa's mask to cover them up. Maybe then she could see again like Teresa. The truth finally sank in. This was all my fault. I had dragged Mary into this, and she had lost her life helping me. I had killed her. My knees collapsed and I sank into the grime. My hand landed on something cold and slippery that appeared to have fallen from Mary's hand, a large kitchen cleaver.